Halliday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Halliday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Halliday. Halliday, bring it on.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, June 26th, 2023. On the show today, news, a great batch of listener questions, and in surveys, Disney wants to know if you like Tron more at night. Then in our main segment, Jim gives us the surprising history of the Walt Disney World Speedway, which started construction this week in 1995. Let's get started by bringing in the man who kind of wishes Dolly Parton sang 10-3 instead. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
Dolly Parton, a national treasure if we ever had one. Are you familiar with her Imagination Library program?
Oh, yeah. She gives books to kids.
Yeah, they're up to, at this point, 200 million books given away to kids under the age of 5.
Amazing.
I've been meaning to get down to Dollywood forever. I remember back in 1986 when they announced they were going to rebrand Silver Dollar City around Ms. Parton. And this December, finally, my sister and I are going to go down there.
Are you going in December?
Yeah.
Let me know the dates.
Okay.
This will be better than the time we visited the Holy Land. The Holy Land experience.
I believe you meant to say Holy Land, USA.
Yeah, we didn't go to. We haven't been to Israel yet.
No, we have not. On the other hand, our buddy BioReconstruct did a recent flyover.
I saw.
They flattened it.
Yeah.
There's no going back now, Len.
That's true. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let me know your dates. I would love to go to Dollywood.
Oh, that'd be cool. I'll let you know. All
right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to subscribers over at disneydish.bandcamp.com. Thanks to new subscribers Spencer Eachus, Katie Mercer, Meg Legband817, and Robert Worf. And longtime subscribers Chad Ryan, Patrick Watts, Kristen Helmstetter, and Super Jess. Jim, these are the Disney cast members working to repair the Miss Tilly, the boat stuck on Mount Mayday in Disney's Typhoon Lagoon Water Park. They say that between the boat's excellent repair manuals and the DIY French maritime documentary Les Joyeux Naufrages, they expect to have Miss Tilly seaworthy again by the end of the year. True story.
This is where my high school French would fail me.
Do you know
what does this word mean? La wrench. I'm totally confused.
So the French maritime documentary is better known in the U.S. as Gilligan's Island.
Well, okay. At least they're going to get that coconut radio going.
Exactly.
That's all that matters.
Exactly. Okay? All right, Jim, let's do the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner of the Disney Dish Podcast. For a worry-free travel experience every time, book online at StorybookDestinations.com. All right, Jim, light news week this week, but our friends at WDW Magic are reporting that Epcot's Journey of Water, inspired by Moana, has begun testing. As a reminder, it's scheduled to open in the fall of 2023. Jim, do you think that there's a little bit of urgency now for Disney to get this open, given what we're seeing with attendance numbers in summer?
Yeah, but at the same time, Len, honey, your Journey of Water's open. Get some plane tickets. Yes, it would be something new to do if you're already going to Epcot. But I would argue this isn't even going to make people go out of their way to go to Epcot.
It's not going to make people in World Celebration walk all the way over to World Nature.
No.
I don't know. I mean, it's good that they've got something, but it's going to be a long stretch after this.
It is.
All right. Speaking of new things, though, in surveys, our friend Jeff Kloon sent in a Magic Kingdom survey with this new question. Did you ride Tron Light Cycle Run during the daytime or nighttime when you visited? So my question, Jim, is why? Why does Disney care?
Every year, Disney adjusts its marketing approach, what it's putting in its ads that it's putting out for the resort and that sort of thing. And I think this is just one of these things where it's like they love Tron at night. They love how it looks at night. That's the image that should go into the ad.
Oh, it's for advertising. We're going to show it at night. So you ask whether you rode at day or night and then how you liked it and then go from there.
Yeah.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jeff also mentioned that in the same survey, he got a question that asked him to describe a bunch of Magic Kingdom attractions using the following terms. And the terms are iconic, personal favorite, immersive, boring, dated, insensitive, or I'm not familiar with it. And that Jeff said that what's interesting is that he rated several attractions as boring, but at the end of that series of questions, it only asked him why Winnie the Pooh was rated as boring. And Jeff said, it makes me feel like they took rating Pooh as boring as personally offensive to them, and I felt guilty afterwards. I have to expect Pooh and Tigger to hunt me down next time I'm in the park and smack me across the back of the head.
If we're talking about the IPs that make a ridiculous amount of money for the Walt Disney Company, Pooh is right up there. In fact, for a time back in the late 80s, early 90s, Pooh was selling more merch than Mickey. And so why that one would raise a red flag that, why did you think it was boring? Wait a minute, that's our moneymaker. What do you mean you think it's boring?
Exactly.
They want additional info because God help them if Pooh revenue starts to fall off.
Yeah, that would be bad. I actually have some insight into why they only asked about one attraction, though, and I think it's to keep the survey short. So one of the things so we've just recently finished redoing the survey at touringplans.com, and one of the things that we wanted to do was ask you why you liked or didn't like certain things, like, you know, if you rated an attraction very high or a restaurant very high, you know, or low. We want to ask you why, you know, what specific thing you liked or didn't like about that made you rate the thing the way you did. But imagine, you know, you're at Walt Disney World for a week. You go on like 40 attractions, you eat at 10 restaurants. We don't want to ask you that question for every one of those things because you'd stop answering them. So what we end up doing is picking some of them at random and saying, hey, you described this thing as this. Why did you give it that rating? And we only do it for a couple, but, you know, on average over time, like for us where we get 70 or 80,000 people filling out a survey, you will get enough answers for each restaurant and each attraction to get a valid sample. So I think it's to keep the survey short.
Great insight there.
Spent a lot of time on that one. All right, on to listener questions. From Victoria Liptrot. I'm in the UK, and I was curious if you've heard much about the Disneyland Paris cast member strikes and the impact it's having on the resort. I'd be really interested to hear your take on it. So, Jim, our own Guy Selga is recently back from Disneyland Paris, and he had some experiences with this. But have you heard anything about this?
From the moment that the Euro Disneyland Resort was announced, and what was it? Michael Eisner stepped outside of the signing with Mitterrand and got pelted with tomatoes and eggs. You know, it was just sort of like, look, you know, France has got a France. You know, this is what they do. I mean, I want to say for the opening day of the resort, you know, weren't the farmers in the area? Didn't they block the highway and set
with
fire
tractors
to like hay bales or so? This is kind of what they do over there. If they're having a job action, they're going to march in the park, and stuff that you couldn't do stateside. It's just sort of like, no, this is France. We can do that. We are going to be vocal about this, and that's what they're doing.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you haven't been to France if you haven't seen a labor action.
That's it exactly.
But Guy was there, and he said the interesting thing was that the labor action was happening in the park. Like there were cast members on strike in the park, which is really interesting to me. Like it's a different aspect of French labor law than here in the U.S. Like in the U.S., striking cast members would probably not be allowed into a Disney park to stage that strike. But in France, they're like, oh yeah, you work there, go ahead.
Thank you, union. Oh, you're welcome.
So I guess if you go, you will see, you know, on occasion striking cast members in the parks. But again, it's I don't want to quote Beauty and the Beast, but after all, this is France.
There we go.
All right. From Carly, and this is in response to the announcements we had last week around the hard ticket events for winter. Carly writes in and says, with the recent announcements, I'm getting hard ticket event fatigue. I'm curious about your thoughts on the following. Who are they targeting to attend these events? We've attended 2 Christmas parties in the past. So who are they targeting, Jim?
Kind of interesting. Mr. Schul and I were talking about this just recently, about, you know, how Disneyland is a regional park where Walt Disney World still is that place where for a lot of families it's that once in a lifetime thing. So the whole notion of you're there and it's like, oh, I mean, I'm glad you're enjoying the parks, but have you heard about this after hours thing we're doing? There's less resistance to this idea. We're only doing this once, so sure, let's spring for Jollywood Nights, that sort of thing. So again, I think in a lot of cases, it's for those folks. It's like fear of missing out. So
right, and the Halloween and Christmas parties are super popular, both with locals and with visitors. Yeah. Carly's other question: do you feel it dilutes the value of the daily base offerings? Can we no longer get some extra seasonal stuff to drive attendance that doesn't have an upcharge? I think those days are long gone, Carly. But does it dilute the value of the daily base offerings? For the Halloween event, it might, because I'd like to see the Halloween parade, at night, but for the general public. But I think for Christmas, most of the holiday stuff is actually available during the week of Christmas. That's in the Christmas event, right?
Yeah. But again, the downside of that is you are in the kingdom. What's the typical attendance during the Christmas week? I mean, it's
bonkers.
Yeah.
And then does the actual number of hours of available park time play into the price of the ticket? And shouldn't it? You've talked about this for a while, where the hard ticket events are basically a way of selling the same park twice in a day.
Oh, yeah.
And before the pandemic, it was as much as 3 times a day. Remember the thing they tested in the Magic Kingdom where Fantasyland would be open?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so they used to sell the same park 3 times in a day. Now it's just twice. Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by that moment when, for a Halloween event or a Christmas event, where they'll start loading people into the park for the nighttime event.
Yeah, late afternoon, yeah.
Yeah, and it just, the whole notion that if you're fairly canny about it, you can get an additional 2 and 3 hours worth of park time if you show up right as they're loading, begin to load people in for the party. Yeah. So
super interesting. All right, we got a really great spreadsheet from listener Chris Ripley, who says, I've been running the TEA figures. We talked about theme park attendance last week. I've been running the TEA figures since 2011, and Disney's been steadily losing market share to Universal on an average of 2.7% per year, with COVID years included, or 0.73% per year otherwise. Disney probably doesn't mind this, as they seem to be obsessed with revenue, so fewer guests who spend more fit into their strategy. However, this can't be a great long-term policy, as even high rollers will surely be put off by a lack of investment or repeat experiences. And if you look at the numbers, Chris is projecting out that by the year 2029, Universal will actually have more attendance than Disney World at the current level of change. And Jim, 2029 is a lot sooner than people think.
Yeah, it is. It is. And in fact, I'm sure you've been watching this past week the food and retail component of the Minion Land.
Oh, yeah.
Is
taking
coming
shape,
online.
Yeah.
And Comcast has turned to the Universal Parks and said, RIP, start using it.
Yeah.
In fact, it won't be too long now before we find out what's being put into the old Woody Woodpecker Feifel Playland area, which I keep hearing over and over again that's the DreamWorks section of the park, and kind of a 1-2 punch of a Minions land and a DreamWorks land for a lot of little kids. To some mommy and daddy, I want to go visit the Minions.
Yeah, it's a great strategy. Yeah, and Chris's numbers don't include the projected opening of Epic Universe, which is only going to accelerate the number of people who go to Universal Parks. Yeah.
It's not like people are like, oh, we got to go to the Disney parks. They've got those elemental characters.
Oh, yeah, we texted about this during the week. What happened? So Pixar's latest movie is Elemental, and on Monday I opened up my web browser to see a great deal of consternation from media analysts, because Elemental apparently is the weakest box office opening for any Pixar movie ever. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, mind you, if you adjust the original Toy Story from 95, for $2023, the weird part of it is there's a disconnect. Yes, that's what the box office says. If you go for the audience score over at Rotten Tomatoes, it's in the high 90s. People who actually went to go see this movie in theaters enjoyed it. But how many of the most recent Pixar films, because of the pandemic, debuted on Disney Plus?
Right. Yeah, I think that there's a theory that devalued the brand.
More to the point, you taught the audience that if they wait 6 to 8 weeks,
it'll be on Disney Plus. Oh yeah, good point. Yeah.
It's not that people don't value Pixar films. They're just like, look, I'm busy.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stuff in theaters right now. And I also know, look, you taught me. In 6 to 8 weeks, I can sit in the comfort of my own home and watch this very same film.
And there are a couple of other things in this too, right? This is a brand new franchise for Pixar, and it's not an event opening that would require people to go to theaters. Like I've been telling Laurel for months that our date night on June 30th is we're going to go see Indiana Jones. Like I will buy you all of the milk duds you want, and we're going to go to a theater and watch this movie. And I don't think anyone thought the same thing of, whatever Pixar's latest movie is. I want to see Indiana Jones in theaters on a big screen with very loud music.
So interesting, we just talked about animated features. Very same day, Len, as counter programming, DreamWorks is putting out its next animated feature. What is it? Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. And by the way, ads make it look charming, looks like a lot of fun. It's kind of a riff on Disney's Little Mermaid. But here's the thing. If you thought the box office for Elemental was low, the current projections for Ruby Gillman are for its entire opening weekend, because Dial of Destiny is going to blot out the sun.
Sure.
$8 million total. I mean,
$8 million isn't even a very good Powerball lottery.
No.
So $8 million I wouldn't even play. Like, whatever. What am I going to do with that?
But again, I just feel bad because it's just a lot of people worked on that film. They wanted people to see it in theaters, and again, 6 weeks later,
could do well in streaming. Yeah, Paramount Plus or whatever.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Next question from Todd, who says, "My wife and I were looking at the current Disney discounted prices for the upcoming holiday season." This is for hotels. To the best of her memory, the current hotel prices are what the rack rates were prior to 2022. I'm looking for old receipts because we spent a lot of time in the Disney hotels from 2018 to 2022. I don't know if you have any information on the rack rates before the post-pandemic inflation. I'm just curious. All right. So I went back and looked at this, actually. So we talked a couple of weeks ago, Jim, about the current discounts for Christmas in Walt Disney World being anywhere from 30 to 40%. And in spot checking, various hotels in Walt Disney World, it looks like the current room discounts will bring things back to somewhere between 2019 and 2020 in terms of prices. So not super low, but we're basically undoing the last 3 or 4 years of price hikes.
If you want to talk about playing into the narrative that it's too expensive to go to Walt Disney World, it's like, yes, we've discounted it. It's now down to what you paid 3 years ago.
Yeah, 2019. It's not, and that's not historically a great discount. There were times that we had seen spots of slow times before where you could get like Pop Century rooms on Hotwire for basically 2003 prices. And we've talked about this in the show. Like, I think, an historically low price is, something that you haven't seen in 20 years. This is something you haven't seen in 3 or 4. But by the way, Jim, have you heard that, speaking of hotels, Disney's considering testing Hotwire deals again?
Ooh.
To sell rooms?
Yeah. Okay. Wow. That canary in the coal mine is it looking
the canary's losing feathers. And it's funny that you mention this because Chrissy was in Walt Disney World the last couple of days staying at Beach Club. And one of the things that she said she got was she got this notice on My Disney Experience that said, are you interested in a dining reservation for tonight? Click here. And she opened it up, and almost every on-site restaurant had availability that night for dinner in Walt Disney World. Like, oh, you want to get to be our guest? Come on in. How's 6? Is 6 good? Yeah.
Oh.
And we're in, we're sort of like in the tail end of peak summer vacation season right now. We're in the third week of June. But still, to have MDE pushing out alerts saying, we have tons of availability in dining tonight. Yeah, not great.
Wow, that was a great get for Chrissy. Yeah. Holy cow, that's news.
Yeah. All right, last question from Julia. You're going to love this, Jim. And let me preface this by saying I'm only putting this email in because I have done this before. All right.
Okay.
So Julia writes in and says, my friend and I, both female and in our early 30s, are headed to Walt Disney World for a few days in August. On our last day, we're planning to do the Magic Kingdom, Tron, and then have dinner reservations at Citrico's. Given that it'll be August, we're expecting to get sweaty and gross in the parks, so we'll need to freshen up and change clothes for dinner, especially since Citricos has a dress code. We're staying at Caribbean Beach, so going back to the room is not time efficient. Do you have any suggestions for where we could freshen up for dinner in the Magic Kingdom or at the Grand Floridian?
Oh, this I have to hear.
All right.
Okay.
Let me preface this by saying there's rule breaking, Jim, and then there's rule breaking, right?
Okay.
This is it's sort of like doesn't the Catholic Church differentiate between like mortal sins and other sins? Like, this is not a mortal sin. It's what I'm about to say here. I realize is breaking the rules. But there are breaking the rules where you put people in harm and you could go to jail. And then there are times where you break the rules and the only real impact is you have a great story to tell 20 years from now.
Okay.
Keep this in mind. And again, we've all done this. All right. So there have been times, Julia, when I was living in North Carolina and doing Disney research, and we did basically what you are describing. We would stay in the Magic Kingdom all day and then, prepare to hop in the car for a 10-hour drive home so that, through the middle of the night so that we could be at work on Monday morning. And rather than be gross after being in the parks in the Magic Kingdom for 10 hours, I have popped into the Polynesian pool, taken a quick dip, changed clothes, and then got in the car. Was I staying at the Polynesian? No. Breaking the rules? Yes, definitely breaking the rules. 100%, I admit it. I don't think there's great harm in, let's say, availing yourself of the Grand Floridian pool. So maybe bring a backup pair of clothes and a bathing suit in whatever you're carrying throughout the day. And, wait for the door to open at the Grand Floridian pool, pop in real quick, change there, and then go to dinner at Citricos. Again, okay. I've done this before, but Jim, am I missing another idea here?
I would take a much higher level of gross than you would, Len. I would actually, if I was staying in the Magic Kingdom, I would hop on the boat over to Fort Wilderness, and then take the Eternal Transportation to the very first
comfort station.
There we go. So you could not just jump in the pool, and you could take an actual shower and shave and change your clothes. And I'm a much higher level of rope debate than you are, Len.
You've thought about this more than I have.
I have.
We make a great team.
There we go.
So, yes, that is a great idea and doesn't involve too much rule breaking.
No.
Beautiful. I'll definitely allow some time for that, though, Julie, because that's getting over to Fort Wilderness is relatively straightforward. It's the getting from Fort Wilderness to Grand Floridian where you've got to take the internal bus system back to the check-in. Yeah.
There we go.
And then Uber from there. All right, cool. But you have a couple of options, Julia. Yeah, I would definitely do Fort Wilderness. Good job, Jim.
Okay. Yeah, I tried.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim's going to come at us like a spider monkey. We'll be right back.
The family that vacations together stays together. At least, that was the plan. Except now, the dastardly desk clerk is saying he can't confirm your connecting rooms.
Wait, what?
That's right, ma'am. You have rooms 201 and 709.
No, we cannot be 5 floors away from our kids.
The doors have double locks. They'll be fine.
When you want connecting rooms confirmed before you arrive, it matters where you stay.
Welcome to Hilton. I see your connecting rooms are already confirmed.
Hilton, for the stay.
This episode is brought to you by 20th Century Studios' new film, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Golden Globe winner Jeremy Allen White and Academy Award nominee Jeremy Strong. Scott Cooper, the director of the Academy Award-winning movie Crazy Heart, brings you the story of the most pivotal chapter in the life of an icon. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere. Only in theaters October 24th. Get your tickets now.
Every story you love, every invention that moves you, every idea you wished was yours, all began as nothing. Just a blank page with a blinking cursor, asking a simple question. What do you see? Great ideas start on Mac. Find out more on apple.com/Mac.
All right, Jim, when you proposed doing the Walt Disney World Speedway as a feature story. I was like, we haven't really talked about this as much, but there's a lot of really interesting history here, and an attempt at Disney to sort of expand their market beyond the usual set of sports.
Well, yeah, and the reason this sort of came on my radar is, remember, I want to say this was after our Galactic Star Cruiser event. You and I attempted to walk from the TTC all the way to the Magic Kingdom on that, only to get tripped up by the construction at the Grand Flow.
Yeah, this was April,
April, there we go. But as I was driving over to the Poly to meet you, took that new flyover that connects World Drive, the Floridian Way.
Right. This is the second of the new flyovers. This one's brand new, opened this year.
Yeah.
You go if you want to go to the Poly now. You no longer go straight past the Magic Kingdom ticket booths and make a left. You actually veer to the left, and then you eventually make a right on that street to get to the Poly.
But what's kind of cool about it is that there's a moment where you're elevated and you can sort of look down into the Magic Kingdom parking lot. And for a moment, it's like, oh, that was where the Speedway was.
Yep.
Existed for a relatively short window of time. I opened in 95, and by 2015, they were pulling the thing down. But by then, it had long since stopped being a place where races were held, and it was mostly the Richard Petty driving experience.
Right.
Which you did, right?
I did. I got yelled at by a set of mechanics saying, if you continue to ride the clutch like that, we're going to be here all night rebuilding this thing. So don't do it. Yeah. I was like, I paid for this clutch.
There we go. I forget which media event they took us over there and treated us to the Richard Petty driving experience. And I got to tell you, Len, it was a genuine Winnie the Pooh moment when I had to climb in that window to get into the driver's seat.
Those are small people, yeah.
Yeah, well.
I actually did IndyCar. I didn't do Richard. I did the IndyCar experience there, but I didn't do Richard Petty. But yeah, same idea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, what was interesting about this 1 mile long 3-turn tri-oval track that was built there, it was known affectionately as the Mick-Yard, and that was supposed to tie it back to the Brickyard, which is the 2.5 mile long track that listeners probably know better as the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which was where the Indy 500 held every May. In fact, the 107th running was held just 4 weeks ago. By the way, the Indy 500 plays a crucial role in the creation of the Walt Disney World Speedway in Orlando. In fact, the seed for the $6 million project was planted just 8 months after Michael Eisner first became CEO of the Disney company. And Disney, out of the 10 studios in Hollywood that are making film and television, they're dead last.
Yeah, they're 11th somehow in a field of 10.
Yeah, no, it's like, I don't know how we're doing that, but we're 11th. So yes, it's crucial to get the characters out as much as they can. And so Eisner cuts a deal with the Indy 500 people to have the Indy 500 Festival, which is this thing that's held around the launch of the official race. He cuts a deal. So that year, the 1985, for the 70th running of the Indy 500, they're going to theme the Indy Fest, The Wonderful World of Disney. So
wow. Okay, there's a lot of people that go to the Indy 500.
Oh yeah, well no, that's the thing. This is they're telling the story. All right, so Jeffrey Katzenberg and I fly out to Indianapolis in '85 to attend that year's Indy 500. So we're sitting in the stands with 500,000 people.
Yeah.
And there's this parade that's held inside of the Speedway before the official start of the race where cars with celebrities and politicians roll by. So first the governor of Indiana goes by and there's polite applause. And then the car with Mickey Mouse goes by and there's more more applause from the crowd. But which makes me feel good about the Disney characters. But then Jim Varney goes by in a car dressed as Ernest.
Go ahead.
All right. And 500,000 people go berserk.
500,000 people lose their mind. Yeah. All right.
All right. So this is what Eisner turns to Jeffrey Katzenberg and says, yeah, we should probably do something about that.
Okay. But I mean, there's a difference between we should do something about 500,000 people loving Jim Varney and let's build a racetrack in Florida.
But see, that's the thing. What impressed Eisner is, again, 500,000 people coming to this racetrack.
And so that's a very large sample size. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And remember, when Michael had, what had tipped the scale at Michael the job at Disney was that the Bass brothers, those billionaire Texas investors, got behind him.
Yeah.
But when he got the job, they turned to him and said, look, priority number one is developing Walt Disney World. You've got 40 square miles of property, and we got to find new ways for the company to profit off of this property. And Eisner, the guy loves sports. I mean, what was it? We got the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim in 93.
Yeah. And that was an expansion team, right? They made that team, yeah.
They did. And again, I want to say, was it the Florida Panthers at the same time? I forget. Okay. Walt Disney World Marathon kicks off in 94. The very same year, we get the All-Star Sports Resort at Walt Disney World. It buys ESPN in 95. That's part of the $19 billion deal to buy ABC Cap Cities. 96, Disney gets the Gene Autry's family to sell them a chunk of the Los Angeles Angels. And over time, they completely buy the team and change them into the Anaheim Angels. And then in 97, we got the Disney's Wild World of Sports complex, a 220-acre thing, eventually got rebranded as the ESPN Wild World of Sports in 2010. But that's a lot of sports-related stuff.
It is, yeah.
So Eisner first broaches the idea of building a racetrack somewhere on Disney property with the Imagineers in the mid to late 80s. And mind you, serious work is already underway on Disney MGM. So the thinking with the Imagineers is, let's finish Disney World's third gate first.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then we can circle back on this thing that the boss wants us to do that we've never, ever done before. But now it's a question of, okay, you want to build a racetrack. You have 40 square miles. Where do you put it? And so the Imagineers, as they do, they go off and they do research. They visit a number of speedways around the country. They also watch the broadcasts that have been done to get a sense of, all right.
Camera angles and whatnot, yeah.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And what they realize is that for the 2 weeks leading up to the actual race for the Indy 500, the Goodyear blimp is flying back and forth over the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And again, back to the Bass brothers now, one of the other things they told Eisner, you have to do a better job of promoting Walt Disney World, where it's like, so this is kind of the decision tree. So the Imagineers think, okay, Michael wants us to build a racetrack in Florida, something that will lure guests to Walt Disney World during those times of year when attendance is soft.
And what else can the blimp see while it's shooting down at this?
There we go.
Yes.
We have hotels. We have a theme park. Seven Seas Lagoon and Bay Lake. So where could we put this? So that's our background.
Right. So at the time in the 80s, we've got two theme parks. We've got Epcot and the Magic Kingdom, and Studios is planned. Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's one of these things where it's like, what do people think of when they think of Walt Disney World? And so clearly the Kingdom, clearly the monorail resorts, that sort of thing. And you have the 125 acres for the Magic Kingdom parking lot, already graded land. It was prepped back in the late 60s, early 70s. So it's not a question of you're going to build there and surprise, there's a sinkhole.
Right. Well, plus they've already got the TTC right there to do other transportation. And they've got a hub built in and it's walking distance. Okay.
Yeah. And remember, once upon a time, there was a plan to build the Walt Disney World Showcase in the Magic Kingdom parking lot for that very same reason, Len. So think about it. If you put the racetrack in the lower southwest corner of the Magic Kingdom parking lot, this is an area that only gets used when the park is at its absolute busiest. So we're talking 4th of July, Christmas, New Year's.
Sure.
So it's like, you put it there, and as the blimp flies overhead, shooting the race, they can't help but see, Seven Seas Lagoon, Bay Lake. It's $1 million of free advertising.
Not only that, but if you think about the hotels that are on the Seven Seas Lagoon, they're some of Disney's most iconic structures. The Contemporary, nothing else looks like that. The Polynesian, nothing else looks like that. The Grand Floridian, outside of San Diego, nothing else looks like that, right?
There we go. There we go.
Yeah, so that's, from a visual perspective, that's where to put that. Okay, all right.
And more to the point, if you think about, you've already got graded, prepped land.
Yeah, you've already got the parking lot, you've already got the transportation. Yeah.
Yeah, you are saving so much on traditional startup construction costs. So site survey work is done in secret September of 94 by Buena Vista Construction. Project is formally announced January 23rd, 1995, with the very first race to be held in this venue 1 year later. In fact, on January 27th, 1996. And that date was chosen for a very specific reason, Len, which we'll get to in a sec. Actual groundbreaking, as you mentioned, began this week, back in 1995. In fact, Mary Holman George, she was the chairman of the board for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. She flies down to Walt Disney World to take part in the ceremony. In fact, she actually gives Walt Disney World officials one of the original paving bricks that was used to create the Brickyard back in 1909.
All right. Was that checked luggage, or did she put that in carry-on? 2.5 pounds? I don't know, man. Or 9.5 pounds, yeah.
Yeah, that could have been a challenge. Okay. So after the groundbreaking, they put down 5,200 tons of asphalt to make the racing service. They pour 1,800 yards of concrete to make the outside walls of the racetrack. And then on top of that, to stop the occasional flying tire, Len, they put up 10 miles of safety restraining cabling, and then put a lot of effort into the pit row area.
Oh, sure, there's safety stuff there too, yeah.
But they did all of that during one of the soggiest summers on record in Orlando. Between the months of June and July alone, 75 inches worth of rain fell.
In 2 months, 75 inches of rain.
I remember you talking once about when you were working on the guide, didn't you buy like 100 years of weather data from the Orlando Sentinel just to sort of have that? I was wondering if that sort of bumped out from the pile there, like, wow.
I was probably there in the summer of 95, 75 inches of rain. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you remember doing the breaststroke a lot?
Well, I remember one. I don't remember if it was 1995, but I remember at one point, like it being in a torrential downpour on the outside queue of Haunted Mansion, and right before it started raining, I was miserably hot, and then it started raining, and because I was a kid back then, I stood in line in the rain while the rain came down, and then at the end of it, I remember going from like boiling hot to freezing. In the span of like 15 minutes, to the point where I was shivering in Florida in July, right?
The rest of the story has to deal with Legionnaire's disease, right?
It must have been. Anyway.
There we go.
All right. So in the summer of 95 was wet.
But by October 18th of that year, last bit of paving is done on this 1 mile track. In fact, they have the formal dedication. In fact, I've been looking for footage of this. It was on November 28th, but evidently they literally had 5 Indy racing legends to form a flying V on the track,
like AJ
while
Foyt,
fireworks. Yeah. So lots of publicity for this event. And so the question is, why? And the event that was going to be held in January, which was the inaugural Indy 200, what Disney and the folks who ran the Indy Racing League were hoping was this televised debut of the Walt Disney World Speedway. It was something they carefully put together. In fact, again, we talked about them deliberately selecting January 27th as the day for the debut race. And the reason they did that is that was the day before Super Bowl 30 was staged in 1996. And a little background here. Michael Eisner starts his career in television at 66. He was hired to be Barry Diller's assistant, who at that time was the ABC's national programming director, which meant Eisner had a front row seat when the very first Super Bowl, original Super Bowl, was broadcast in January of 67. And over the next 2 decades, he watched as the Super Bowl, steadily grew in popularity till it became this broadcasting behemoth. So Eisner knew from his personal experience that a televised sporting event, when properly positioned and promoted, could eventually become this enormous thing. And remember, Disney had just bought ABC Cap Cities earlier that same year, in 1995, for $19 billion, and that included ABC Sports and ESPN.
Yeah, so they need content.
They do. And the whole thing is like, man, if we do this right.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, they were positioning so the Indy 200 would then become the very first professional auto race of the year.
Oh, right, because Daytona's in February.
There you go. All right. But also, the whole notion is, if we set this up right, we have our raceway attached to a brand new television tradition, the race that sports fans watch the day before the Super Bowl.
And that's kind of great, because if you think about like football fans, there are only 2 teams that play in the Super Bowl, which means 30 other teams' fans have nothing to do that weekend, right? So why not watch? I mean, you'll casually watch the Super Bowl, but if there's another sporting event that you could sort of get behind, and it's a race, that's great.
It's already a weekend where people are thinking sports, and they're killing time out ahead of the start of Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, and the NBA and the NHL are playing, but it's sort of mid-season, right? They're not into playoffs yet.
It is. If it had worked, it would have been amazing. But sadly, all the ambitious plans that the Mouse and the Indy Racing League originally had for this corner of the Magic Kingdom parking lot never came to fruition. And by January of 2000, the Indy 200 race was pretty much defunct.
Wow.
Or at least as far as the Walt Disney World Speedway was concerned. And so
that's fast.
So how did this highly anticipated, seemingly can't miss project wind up as the home of then what was the seriously underutilized Richard Petty driving experience, which then, the whole thing shuttered in 2015 and then got turned back into a parking lot. Well, Len and I will talk about that in depth in the second and final part of the story, which we'll share on next week's Disney Dish.
The thing that amazes me about this story, Jim, is 2 things. One, if it had worked, and they were able to get all this publicity in January. January is also when most families plan their year's vacations.
Oh, yeah.
If they had got Walt Disney World in front of the right people early enough in January, that definitely would have boosted attendance, not only for the race, but for later on in the year.
Yeah, I mean, there was so much literally riding on this working, and when we get to this part of the story, the things that tripped it up, I mean, it just the project got weirdly snake bit. But again, we'll get into specifics next week.
And the other thing that surprises me, and I'm excited to hear about this next week, is if you think about the period of like 1995 to maybe like 2015, that was like the 2 decades of explosive growth in NASCAR popularity. And how did Disney miss out on all of that? I know NASCAR and Indy aren't the same thing, but explosive growth in racing, right?
Okay.
And it's just misses. Anyway, we'll hear about it next week.
That we will.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for the show today. You can help support our show and Jim Hill Media by subscribing over at disneydish.bandcamp.com, where you'll find exclusive shows never before heard on iTunes. Also, we have an email now for tech support at Bandcamp, and that is support@bandcamp.com. On next week's show, Jim continues the story of the Walt Disney World Speedway, while I suppress the urge to do the entire show as Ricky Bobby. In the meantime, lay off the peyote. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len at touringplans.com. We're produced fabulously by Aaron Adams, who will, of course, be playing his Martin D35 guitar, nicknamed Watermelon Moonshine, on the song Straight Up Sideways, live on stage with headliner Lainey Wilson on Sunday, July 30th at the Union County Fairgrounds, just off Main Street in beautiful downtown Marysville, Ohio. While Aaron's doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.